Hey guys, welcome back to Delving into the Cold. This is Dee. As some of you know, some of you may not, we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of when I started the show. And so I thought that for that I would do a special case, kind of a bigger case this week. And I just happened to have been working on this case for a couple weeks now. So I kind of thought that it would be the perfect case to use for our anniversary special episode. And it's the Redhead Murders case, also known as the Bible Belt Strangler case, but that's a newer title for it. But these murders occurred between 1978 and 1992 in Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. And all of the women, and they were all women, by the way, that were murdered were abandoned along major U.S. highways. They were all at least partially redheaded, hence redhead murders. And most of them were believed to be either hitchhiking or engaged in prostitution. Now, there's 11 victims. That's the number that most people believe, most investigators, but there are definitely more possible victims. 4 of those victims have been identified. And so really quick, I found a list of victims online on a couple different websites, and I added them together. I went to the Doe Network, I went to Name Us, I went to different websites online to try and find as many victims as possible. So I'm gonna list those now, tell you where they were found, when they were found, their most likely cause of death, most likely time of death. The first one is Wetzel County Jane Doe, found in Wetzel County, West Virginia on February 13th, 1983. She likely died on February 11th, 1983. She was 35 to 40 years old with auburn hair. She was approximately 5 feet 6 inches and 135 pounds. She had brown eyes. She may have been with a middle-aged white male in the area. The next victim is Lisa Nichols. She was 28 years old. She was found on September 16th, 1984 in West Memphis, Arkansas. She was strangled. She had strawberry blonde hair. The next victim is Tina Farmer. She was 21 years old. She was found on January 1st, 1985. She had red hair, she was strangled, and she was accompanied by a trucker heading to Kentucky. The next 2 victims are collectively known as the Campbell County victims. The first one was found on April 3rd, 1985. She was between 9 and 15 years old, and she died 1 to 4 years before she was born. Her cause of death is undetermined. The next victim in the Campbell County case was found in 1985. She had short red hair. Her cause of death is unknown, but foul play is heavily suspected. The next victim is Cheatham County Jane Doe, who was found on March 31st, 1985. She had red hair. She had died 3 to 5 months before she was discovered. Her cause of death is unknown, but she was anywhere between 5 feet and 5 feet 2 inches, and anywhere between 31 to 40 years old. The next victim is S.B. Pilgrim, who was found on April 1st, 1985 in Knox County, Kentucky. She was found in a refrigerator. She had long red hair, light brown eyes. She was 24 to 35 years old, and 4 feet 9 to 4 feet 11 inches tall. The next victim was Elizabeth Lamont, who was found April 14th, 1984 in Greenville, Tennessee. Her cause of death was blunt force trauma. She died 4 to 6 weeks before she was found. She was 17 years old and between 5'4" and 5'6". She was between 130 to 140 pounds. She had light brown hair with red highlights. Our next victim is DeSoto County Jane Doe, who was found on January 24th, 1985. She was 20 to 35 years old, about 5 feet 3 inches tall, 110 pounds. She had auburn hair and gray eyes. Those are all the victims that I could find conclusive evidence on. And like I said, this is me kind of scouring the internet for any type of information that I could find. But you'll notice commonalities. Most of them are between like 20 and 40 years old. They all had red hair, and again, they were all found on the side of highways. And something else to note is that a lot of these women that I gave you a name to and not just a Jane Doe status have been identified within the last couple of years. So this investigation, while cold, has not been dropped. It's still being worked on. It's still, they're still chasing down leads. They're still identifying women. And so as the case progresses, hopefully more of these women will be identified, and hopefully a killer will eventually be identified. Now let's talk a little bit about the investigation. In 1985, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi requested the FBI's help with the case. They collectively were like, we don't know that we have the resources to solve the case, so they called in the FBI. And now it's important to remember that while there are a lot of commonalities between these women, it does not mean that they're the same killer. And not all of the murders fit the same pattern. And so while it's completely possible that there was one killer, it's also possible that it was multiple killers. But like I said, they're continuously working on this case, and 4 Texas victims, as well as an Ohio victim named Marcia King, were ruled out as being these women. The Texas victims and Marcia King were missing and fit the description, and the people working on the case were like, well, maybe these are some of our victims, and they were not. So while that is in a way a good thing, it's also a bad thing because those families still don't have answers. As far as suspects go, there haven't been that many. There have been 2 truckers at separate times. They weren't together or anything, but at separate times there have been 2 different truckers who were suspected. They seem like they fit the pattern of, kill times and things like that, but they couldn't make it stick. They were eventually cleared. Now, I mentioned earlier that a newer term for the redhead murders is the Bible Belt Strangler, and this term was coined in 2018 by a high school sociology class that had been studying the case. They, I guess that was their project for the semester or whatever, and that's what they coined the killer as the Bible Belt Strangler. But most people just go with the name redhead murderer. Whichever you prefer, it's fine. An FBI profiler describes the killer as, and this is his exact parameters, I'm just reading it to you from the website. He believes that the killer was born between 1936 and 1962, that the killer was a trucker that frequented I-40, The killer is between 5'9" and 6'2", between 180 and 270 pounds. He also believes that his work base is in or near Knoxville, Tennessee. And so, I don't know if you guys are familiar with profiling. It's not an exact science, but based on the victims, the locations, the victimology as far as how the murders were committed, where they were dumped, and the victim's age, sex, appearance, whatnot. This is what an FBI profiler came up with. And if this guy or guys is ever caught, it's completely possible that this whole thing is completely wrong. But it's also completely possible that it's spot on. As far as my opinion, I believe that it's entirely possible that there's one killer. It does seem kind of strange that all the women were redheads, and while they could have multiple killers, it seems like a strong possibility that there's one killer. But there are also a lot of differences in the cases. The appearance of the victims is similar. The MO is similar. I don't want to say dump sites, but the discovery sites of the victims are similar. And the trucker theory, to me, could definitely fit because of the location of where the bodies were found. But I still have my doubts that it was one killer because of some of the small details of the cases. What do you guys think? Do you think that it is the same killer? Do you think that it's different killers? What do you think? That's all I've got for today as far as the case goes. I would like to say a huge thank you to you guys for, listening to me on iTunes or YouTube or Podbean or even my website, wherever you listen to me. It means a lot to me. I work really hard on these cases to try to get as much information, as much detail as I can for you guys. And it means a lot that you guys appreciate it. I haven't been doing this, but I'm gonna start doing it as soon as I upload my next batch of podcasts to iTunes. I will put all of my information as far as Patreon, Instagram, Tumblr, the podcast website, YouTube, all of that. I'll put it in the description of the podcast. So that'll just help you guys out if you want to visit any of those. Don't forget that if you become a patron of the podcast, you get exclusive episodes as well as early access to the Urban Legends episode. And the poll ended this past week for the episode in May for both the Urban Legend and for the True Crime. You guys voted on the Somerton Man and Aren't You Glad You Didn't Turn on the Lights? So I'm working on those. I'm going to get those up as soon as possible. Just hang tight. Alright guys, that's all I've got for you. Stay safe, stay curious. See you next time.